Hello, and today we'll be playing Lyre. We're going to continue with chapter 11, and this will be the start of the trial for Richter. Lyre is going to be the first person to testify at the trial since he's the one who made the arrest. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Most of you know that I was assigned to Lord Richter on his arrival in the kingdom of Lyre as his personal bodyguard. This was a decision made by King Lyre himself. In the time that I have spent with Lord Richter, they have shown no intentions of committing treason or murder. They simply did what they were requested to do by the king as the newly appointed financial advisor. Suddenly, the bearer on my left speaks up. Were you given any other specific duties when guarding this lord? He speaks in a very gruff voice, almost interrupting Lyre. Nothing other than protecting them and guarding their room at night, along with guarding them around the castle. Therefore, and so King Lyre wished for me to help them understand this place. As I was saying, similar to their overall time spent here, nothing out of the ordinary had happened for most of the night leading up to the murder. Richter and I attended the ball and decided to leave early. If my memory serves correctly, Lord Richter left the party before you, after your dance. A few of the nobles look at Oliver as he says this. His sister stands up next to him, adding on to the statement, he left the ballroom alone, slandering us on his way out after that shameful display. I followed them almost immediately after. And I don't appreciate you. No more interruptions for the jury, please. The twins sit down, one of them waving a dismissive wing in Lyre's direction. You may continue, Lyre. I met with Lord Richter at the ball, and we spent some time together before we decided to leave. After I found Richter, I escorted him back to his room. I escorted him back to my room, as it was closest to where I had found him, and he had caught a cold. I knew that my quarters had a fireplace that had already been lit. We stayed there for some time, not intending to return to the party. Then what happened? After a while, a servant came to my quarters saying that King Lyre had sent him to retrieve Richter. The king had business that he wished to discuss with Lord Richter. Richter left with the servant and I stayed behind, knowing he wouldn't need a guard in Lyre's chambers. He clears his throat and continues. After some time, I went to check on Lord Richter. There were no guards posted at the entrance of the staircase. I found that a bit odd, so I ran up the stairs. When I reached the top, I found Richter lying on the ground while Bjorn stood over them, sword drawn and attacking him. I ordered Bjorn to lay down his sword and then found out that Lyre had been killed. Sir Finn had been sent to alert the castle. I didn't think it was Richter who had done it, not for a second. Even so, I arrested them and locked them in a cell. It steps back and Adrian nods his head. Very good. Describe the scene and the crime, please. Now steps forward and continues. Well, Lyre's chambers are at the top of the highest tower, with a spiral staircase leading up to it. The entrance is usually guarded by 2 members of the royal guard while he's there. As examining the room, we found blood on the curtains and drapes. Other than that, there wasn't too much blood anywhere else. There was also no moisture or snow on the carpet near the window, so it's not likely that it was ever opened. The body was lying on the floor behind the bed. Liz takes a piece of parchment and passes it around to the nobles. Each of them looks at it and grimaces. The dagger. The dagger used in the crime was found to the left of the body. There were clear signs of a struggle, separate from the sword marks left in the floor from Bjorn's bastard sword. Lyre had clearly been caught off guard. There were rips in the drapes by the window, indicating that his antlers had torn through them during the struggle. We even found golden flakes from one of his antlers lining the tails. He pauses, taking a deep breath before continuing. He's doing a really good job so far describing the event. He's not lying about anything, but I wouldn't want him to do that. Yet he's still leaving out some truth. Several canine guards along with myself picked up scents from the room. 4 people had been in the room around the time of the murder. Sir Bjorn, Lord Kadas, King Raynor, and of course, Lord Winter. There's chatter among the crowd, but Adris raises his hand to silence them. Is that all you have to present? For now. Adris isn't too happy with this response, but he continues anyway. You may join your guards. Lyre goes up the steps, putting his helmet back on as he takes his place in the center of the guards. He looks down at me for a moment, giving a barely noticeable nod in my direction. Leaf? Yes, Your Majesty? Please give your reports on the body. Of course. Leaf steps forward and holds out a piece of parchment reading off of it. When the body was examined, 2 stab wounds were found in the stomach, along with 1 in the chest. The throat had also been slit across the front. He squinted his eyes, holding the parchment closer to his face. His eyes and head were positioned so that he was looking out the window. Clear signs of a struggle were found on the tips of his fingers. I could see Adris getting a bit uncomfortable in his chair. I actually feel kind of bad and avert my eyes. There were also tear stains on his cheeks, and the body was very clearly fresh. Adris cuts him off as Leaf becomes lost in his description. Thank you, Leaf. Leaf steps back up to the side of the throne, and Liz looks to me. Lord Winter, you may now present your side of the story. I sit there for a moment, not really knowing how to start. The hall is silent, and I can almost hear my own heartbeat beating. Being put on the spot like this is very stressful. I guess it's a start with when Lyre and I separated. I cleared my throat and began. Everything happened just as Sir Reed said it did, at least according to his perspective. The servant, whose name I'm not aware of, came to fetch me early in the night. I told Lyre to stay behind and left for the king's chambers. But he is your guard, is he not? Should he not accompany you everywhere? The servant did not accompany me, saying that I should be able to find my way to his chambers quite easily, insinuating that I would not need a guide. I was only doing what seemed appropriate. He says nothing, waving his hand, allowing me to continue. As I made my way down the hall, I came across Sir Bjorn and Sir Finn standing guard at the entrance of the staircase. They let me pass, and I made my way up to the room. When I reached the top, there was an area with a large window on the ceiling. Ahead were the doors, and when I entered, that's when I noticed something was off. The room was dark, and the curtains and drapes lining the ceiling blocked out a lot of the light. I couldn't see Raynor, so I assumed he wasn't there. That's why I noticed the damage. Broken portraits, large tears through the canopy of the bed. I followed the trail of broken objects and found his body. At first I didn't know what I was looking at. The entire scene left me shocked. I didn't know what to do, and everything was spinning. What happened next? Well, as most of you know, I had been quite ill. I was having constant headaches daily, not to mention the few days I spent comatose. I assumed my mind couldn't handle the sudden shock, and I began to suffer from similar pains. I tried to reach the door to warn someone and tell them what had happened. In the crowd behind me, I could hear people whispering back and forth. Even the nobles are talking amongst themselves. You'd think they would want to hear this. That's when Bjorn entered the room. Right on cue, I would say. He started by spouting off a question for Raynor, but he quickly found out something was wrong. Finn was with him at the time, but Bjorn told him to stay at the door. He found me collapsed on the ground and immediately rushed to Reynold's body. He assumed that I had killed him and attacked. Of course not before sending Sir Finn away to alert the castle. That way he could have me all to himself. If Lyre hadn't arrived in time, he would have killed me on the spot. He didn't mention knocking on the door. Everyone looks up and a few people in the crowd start whispering. I didn't. So he didn't knock on the door. Neither did Sir Bjorn. People in the crowd began to murmur. Idris doesn't look pleased or nor convinced, but when is he ever? I assume the rest of your account is similar to Lyre's? Yes. Very good. Sir Finn, please tell us your side of the story, if you will. Finn turns around, taking off his helmet, faces the nobles and Idris. Bjorn and I were guarding the entrance to King Reynold's chambers at night, as you know. We allowed Lord Winter to pass a few minutes before our shift changed. Bjorn and I went up the stairs to let King Reynold know that we were going to be leaving when Bjorn found what had happened. I was told to alert the castle, and I did so. I was able to quickly find the commander of the castle guard and alert them to the murder. Soon everyone in the castle knew. Is that all? There's one last thing. The big reason Bjorn sent was found in the room was because he would check in on King Reynold every once in a while. As meat-headed as he is, he's dutiful. Each time he returned to our post, and I noticed nothing out of the ordinary. Anything else? Idris almost seems bored. No, that's all. Ben places his helmet back onto his head and reassumes his position among the guards. Unfortunately, that gives Bjorn a nice alibi. Moving on, we'll present some unbiased individuals who have had enough interactions with you to be able to judge your character. Starting with Lyre. Lyre walks down the steps and stands in front of the throne. So far, everything seems to be going smoothly, but something feels off. Lyre, please detail your interactions with Lord Winter. He clears his throat and begins. My lords and ladies, Lord Winter has been a good friend. In the time that he has been here, he has shown nothing but kindness and understanding. He can be a bit odd at times, but no more than the rest of the staff of this castle. I have tended to their wounds and helped him with the head pains he experiences frequently. They've been an excellent patient. Over the past few weeks, he seems to have almost blended in with the nobility residing in this castle. He has become closely acquainted with Sir Reed, and they work very well together. Not only that, but as assigned financial advisor, I'm told that he did his job and did it well. He saved the king a lot of money with that party. He pauses, bowing before Idris. That is all. Lee steps back, and even though all the things he said were kind, it feels like it wasn't a lot. I guess we haven't gotten to know each other that well outside of him caring for me. Thank you, Lyre. Please stay. I just have a few questions for you. I feel a tightness in my gut as he says this. Yes, Your Highness? A few days before the solstice, I believe an incident happened. I asked because I was not there, but I'm told that it was a very theatrical incident. Winter here came storming into a meeting between my father and the war minister. He started spouting off things about what happened 10 years ago, things about my mother. The assassins from the canyons also came into question. Am I correct? I want to speak up and tell him what really happened. I have a strong urge to do it, but I think the best thing to do right now is let Lyre talk. Oh yes, Lord Winter has been suffering from terrible nightmares lately. He merely believed that he had some sort of premonition. I hear a few people chuckle in the crowd behind me and wish I could turn around and yell at them to shut up. What does Lyre think he's doing? He had awoken, frightened and confused, demanding an immediate audience with your father. Before things could go any further, Lord Winter collapsed and fell into a bit of an unconscious state, though I assured your father that I was just letting him rest. Your father even told me himself that it might have been brought on from a story he told Lord Winter the day before. He even admitted to me that he regretted being so open about something knowing that it troubled Winter. Actually, he might just be saving my ass. Still, I so badly wanted to tell them. And yet he wasn't open. In fact, Father never was too detailed when it came to talking about Mother. Yet Winter here knew many details. This is definitely going downhill. I want to tell everyone about Tigran and what's been happening to me. But I hold myself back. I just have to trust that Tigran's handling things wherever they are. Although things aren't looking too good at the more time, and the more time that passes, the more I yearn for a sign from him. Isn't it a bit amusing that Lord Winter was so interested in Lena's death? The vixen cuts in, talking in a very small voice. It was very close with I was very close with her, and even I'm not privy to most of what happened. In fact, Reno rarely spoke of such things, and when he did, it wasn't much. I fail to see how this has anything to do with what I've been accused of. Quiet. I'm afraid you don't get to decide what's relevant. Remember, speak only when spoken to. I meant to berate myself for not holding my tongue. Still, this is a mock trial, if I've ever seen one. Thank you, Leaf, for being so cooperative. I now wish to hear from Minister Elizabeth. Leaf walks back up to the steps, to the side of Adrian's throne, and Liz takes his place. You may begin, Minister. At first, she doesn't say anything. She's most likely thinking about what to say and how to say it, which I honestly appreciate, knowing that my life is possibly at stake. Before the throne room can become completely silent, she speaks up. Lord Winter and I did not have the best first impression. I actually was introduced to them during the incident that Leaf described. It was not a problem at all, really, as I tried to be tolerant of things like that. I can't say I've gotten to know them too well. That would be a lie, but the interactions I've had with them have been for the most part normal. I even had time to chat with them during the solstice ball. With them being from Erin, like myself, idle chat came easily. I can't say much about what happened after that. I watched them dance with Sir Reed and then they left. Even outside this trial, I keep hearing about this dance. Why is it so important? There's a pause in the conversation, but Liz answers after a few moments of contemplation. Lord Winter and Lyre danced together shortly before leaving the party. Certain people have been spreading gossip, but that's none of my concern. As far as I know, it was a dance, nothing more. Interesting. I did not attend, but I have heard the gossip as well. Angel looks down at me, sneering. Thank you for clearing that up. I need a good source. I'm aware that most of the people in this courtroom were present during the solstice ball. Lady Oswell? The Lady Owl stands from her seat, her winged hands resting at the center of her waist. Yes, Your Majesty? Your brother speaks so highly of your good memory. I feel like everyone could use a nice professor. I don't like where this is going. Not one bit. I have a very strong feeling that he's about to use another out-of-pocket incense to smear my image. And all I can do is sit here and take it. What was it that Lord Winter said before leaving the ballroom? I've been hearing so much about this little outburst lately. If my memory is as good as you say it is, I remember him saying something along the lines of, to all your Sams who smile at me through your teeth only to have your good opinion crushed by something so trivial. Enjoy yourselves. God really did say that. Her memory is impeccable. She doesn't even have a way to cheat like I do. This was said after the night had turned sour by their display. Her brother butts in, but Aegis holds up his hand, silencing the two of them. Thank you for refreshing our memories. I think it was warranted. Aegis turns to look at her, and she looks at him too. At first I'm afraid something might happen, but Aegis just quietly responds. Thank you, Minister. I now call forward Lord Gadaz. Liz walks back to the right side of the throne and look over to see Lord Gadaz rise from his chair. He saunters up the steps, stopping where Liz was just standing. Would you have done mean the same as the previous two? Yes. Very well. He turns around and shoots a glance at my way. I get a feeling from him that I'm not too ecstatic about. Hopefully this isn't too bad. I'll be short and sweet about it. My exchanges with Lord Richter have been very pleasant, yes indeed. I believe that we both share a similar goal. The cooperation of the three kingdoms. I'm sorry, before you continue, I have to ask. I'm sure this is on everyone's mind, but why were they able to pick up your scent in my father's room? It's quite simple, really. King Rayna wanted to meet with me, same as he did Lord Richter. He had informed the both of us of these meetings during the party, if I remember correctly. What was this meeting about? He only meant to officially appoint me Minister of Foreign Relations, nothing more. We actually left to dance together, and he was very eager to break the news. The guards followed us to the entrance and stood outside. Rayner had no issue climbing the steps, even considering how tipsy he was. The meeting was quite short, and we mainly just needed a quiet place to discuss things. After that, I left. Now I'm wondering if I was going to be appointed as something more than a financial advisor. I'm not able to gauge whether Lord Richter committed this crime or not. My impression of him is that they're a good person, and that is all. King Idris. Lyre turns around from his position among the guards, taking off his helmet and facing Idris. Yes, Sir Reed. I wish to bring a crucial piece of evidence to everyone's attention. Idris raises an eyebrow, and everyone else in the room also gripped with curiosity. If it will help with this case, then I see no reason why you shouldn't. Lyre walks over to the table with evidence and carefully picks up the dagger that the killer used. When he returns, he holds it out to Kadaj. Seeing the dagger makes my insights turn a bit. Kadaj is looking at Lyre, confused about what's going on. I also don't really understand why Lyre would bring up the dagger now all of a sudden. The entire room is filled with hushed whispers, and through it all, I spot Idris staring at me. He's probably trying to see what reaction I have to the blade. Lord Kadaj, could you tell me if there are any qualities you notice about this dagger? Anything you might be able to point out? Kadaj gently takes the dagger from him, holding it up to his gaze by the pommel and studying it for a moment. Lyre doesn't take his eyes off of Kadaj for a second while he does this. It is a simple dagger, most commonly used with thrusting weapons, but this one is interesting in the design of the blade, almost like a kris. So you're familiar with daggers like this? Yes, I have daggers similar to it. I do not know why you ask this. He hands the dagger back to Lyre, holding it by the blade. It has already been determined by our castle blacksmith that this dagger is ordinary and could be purchased in Aaron or Lyre, correct? Lyre speaks up from the side of Idris' throne. Yes, that was determined some time ago. Without a second opinion. I recently consulted a good friend of mine, a blacksmith with experience trading with all the kingdoms, Eden of Grimrock. I look to my left and see Lord Grundale still in his seat. He took vital evidence to one of the village blacksmiths. Yes, it's one of the reasons Bjorn attacked me, as unwarranted as it was. I didn't hear of you getting permission to do such a thing. No, I did not. I accept full responsibility for my actions and any punishment that follows. Lyre did all that? He's really sticking his neck out for me. Your punishment will be decided later. Though looking at your face, I'd say you've already got your punishment. As unwarranted as it was. Continue. Lyre turns and looks down at me before continuing. Eden said that assuming his dagger would be forged and bought at a place like Lyre or Aaron is a very common mistake. The origin of this dagger, however, is Dries. Surprisingly, the crowd behind us is silent, listening to what he has to say. Typically paired with thrusting swords, this dagger can also be used by itself in grappling. Kadas lets out a scoff, but Liao ignores him. Thrusting swords were invented in Lyre and became exceedingly popular in northern Iran. However, that does not rule out the fact that a Wandel dagger could come from Dries. That is the case with this dagger. How can you tell? It looks very plain to me. The guard and pommel of this dagger is made of arenamite. It's not gold. The crowd breaks the silence and begins to spread whispers throughout the room. They still are getting their entertainment. Arenamite, for those of you who don't know, is mined in the south. It is of a similar quality to gold, but equally rare and hard to distinguish. He draws his sword from the sheath of his back and holds it out to the crowd, just as rare as Vekrite. Aegis leans back in his throne, his eyes trained on the blade, but his expression is the same as it's been for the past few minutes. Liao holds up the dagger. This blade is from Dries, and it is unlikely that Lord Richter would have come in possession of it. Only someone who is the highest class of noble will own something of this quality. Lord Kadas, do you fence? What exactly are you implying? He's implying nothing. Aegis leans forward in his throne, his eyes finally leaving the dagger and falling upon Kadas. However, what do you have to say about this, Lord Kadas? Kadas pokes his finger into Liao's chest, his claw clicking against the metal. Yes, I fence. I participated in many duels back in Dries. However, if the Wandel dagger is a rapier's best friend, then the parrying dagger is its wife. It is known that I much prefer those two weapons together. He lets out a scoff. Honestly, accusing me of using such a civilian tactic. Kadas doesn't even care that Liao just accused him. He only seems to care about his reputation and his choice of weapon. The crowd seems to find this funny. There's an uproar of laughter, and even a few of the nobles are giggling behind their hands. Liao stands there shocked, but quickly regains his composure. This killer didn't use this dagger with a sword. They only used the dagger by itself. Liao, enough. The clothes on my back are from Dries. The place we eat off are from Aaron. Even if this dagger is from Dries, it doesn't change anything. I think it changes everything. Richter is not wealthy enough to purchase a foreign treasure like this from an Iranian market, let alone going to Dries and getting it themselves. Why do you say that? Until recently, they've never been outside their own kingdom. As far as I know, they've only recently became a noble. That's the part I find most odd in all this. There's too many questions I have about his origin that simply go unanswered. That's not the point. Send for Eden. He'll explain it better than I ever could. I'd rather hear from the person who sold this knife, but I'm afraid that's just not possible. Liao, I humor your request out of fairness, but this is ridiculous. Fairness? My voice sends an echo up towards the throne, bouncing off of the wall behind it. The three standing before me turned and looked down, having almost forgotten I was there. You speak of fairness, yet this entire trial is botched. Be quiet. I grow tired of this mockery. Shut up. I did not kill your father, but if it will put a smile on your face, kill me now and be done with it. Stop talking. I'll participate in this charade no longer. Silence. Aegis yells this, his words bouncing off the walls, the entire audience silent as a grave. Liao's looking down at me, shocked and nervous. He then dons a face of disappointment. Kadas was shocked at first, but now seems to be studying the scene as it plays out. Both of you, return to your places. Kadas begins to walk over, returning to his seat. Liao stands there for a moment before reluctantly taking his position among the guards. Before Kadas can return to his seat, I call out to him. You once asked me where my allegiances lie. Aegis jolts his head in my direction but says nothing to stop me. Where do yours lie? Kadas stops walking, standing in place. His tail switches from side to side before turning around to look at me. With Tigran, Victor. As he takes his seat, Aegis begins talking as if nothing had happened. There's one more individual I would like to question before anyone gives a verdict. Who else could he possibly bring up? If I recall, that's everyone I interacted with that night. I call upon the servant, the one who tended to Lord Richter the night of the solstice. What? What could he possibly contribute to this? The servant stands up from their chair and begins to make their way over. I hadn't noticed until now as he was sitting towards the back. I might have noticed him when I entered the room if my mind wasn't already overwhelmed by everything else. At this point, I'm sure Aegis has already won. Why would he even need to go any further? Especially pulling a card like this, it makes no sense. Before I can come up with a conclusion myself, I look over at Lyre. Instead of facing forward like the rest of the guards, he turns his head in my direction. I can't really see his face behind his helmet, but I get the feeling he knows what Aegis is up to. The badger walks up to the side of the hall and takes their place in front of Aegis at the bottom of the second row of steps. They turn around to look at me, their expression neutral. I can't shake the feeling that something is wrong. Please state your name. It's Gerhardt, Your Highness. Could you please describe the events of the night and what happened? Please be sure to not leave out any details. Aegis, this man was never questioned. What are you? Aegis turns to her, raising his hand. Please continue. The servant bows low, swaying their arms out behind their back. Of course, Your Highness. I have been one of the servants tending to Lord Richter for a while now. Of course, most of the time it doesn't really feel that way. You see, Lord Richter rarely accepts the help of servants, leaving most of his tasks up to himself. Of course, it's not something I'm unfamiliar with. Your father was the same way. He glances back at me, but Aegis cuts in. Don't look at him. Just tell us what you know. Gerhardt lowers his head and continues. I was asked to retrieve Lord Richter for his meeting with King Raynor. Knowing he had already left the ball, I went searching for him in his quarters, but our lord was not there. Assuming he had already known about the meeting, I guessed that he had already left for it. That was until I remembered his close relationship with Sir Reed. I figured I would go and check the good knight's quarters to see if he knew where Lord Richter had gone. Aegis shoots a look at Lyre, but Gerhardt continues. When I arrived at the door, I heard something I believe I shouldn't have. At the time, I didn't really understand what I was hearing, but looking back on it, it all makes sense. Whispers about the king. What? That is not true. Quiet. If only I had figured it out then, but I foolishly brushed it off. I assumed Lord Richter was only talking with Sir Lyre about the audience he would have with the king soon. The other thing I found odd was the fact that Lord Richter was with Sir Lyre in his own chambers. As his guard, it should be known that Sir Lyre would accompany Lord Richter to his own chambers. I was ill. Silence, Lyre. I did not wish to be rude by lingering outside the door for too long, so I knocked on it. It took a while for them to answer. I heard whispers from the other side. Once the door opened, however, how should I go about this? Lord Richter was standing before me with much clothing and hair. Sir Lyre, however, was practically naked when I caught a glance at them through the doorway. Several people in the crowd gasped, and a few other nobles scoffed and groaned at hearing this. That feeling I had in the ballroom is starting to come back. The embarrassment and humiliation. I looked to my left and see Liz with her face in her hand. It was quite a sight. Why is this servant lying about me? Could it be that the other killer? No, that doesn't make any sense. Don't tell me they actually... Disgusting. I hear a chair scoot across the floor as Kadas stands from his seat. I fail to see how this has anything to do with the problem at hand. Even if it's true, I see no issue with it. Well, of course you wouldn't. I've heard scandalous stories about you, too. Scandalous stories that die a little bit too soon, if you ask me. Kadas stares at her. Stories. Caden and I are that famous? I'll be sure to let them... Kadar sneers at her. Stories? Kaden and I are that famous? I'll be sure to let him know. Everyone, quiet! The throne room quiets down and Kadar takes his seat along with the others. Finish your story. Gerhard's shoulders slouch and he continues. Look over at Lyre, he's fuming. I informed Lord Ritter about the meeting and then left. I thought nothing of the whispers and plots at the time, but I should have known. I'm so sorry, Your Majesty. Please forgive me. There's nothing to forgive. Thank you for your account. You may return to your seat. Gerhard begins to walk down the stairs and off to the side, but Liao throws off his helmet. This is ridiculous. He's lying. None of that happened. You've spoken out of turn too many times. You're going to silence yourself before I replace your helmet with a muzzle. Do you understand? Liao opens his mouth to say something, but looks at me and steps back. At this, Gerhard walks back to his chair. Good. My legs feel weak as I look around the throne room, and glance at the nobles. Most of them are looking at me with a scornful gaze. Liz is the only one who looks concerned. Aegis turns to them and speaks. My lords and ladies, it is time for you to cast your verdict. Slowly, each of the nobles stands from their chair, Liz being the last to stand. At this point, I feel empty. All I can do is glance around the room and hope things turn for the better. I look over at Lee. His head is hanging low, and I can tell he doesn't like where this is going. We are going to start with you, Minister Elizabeth. The throne room is dead silent, and I see her look up at Aegis with a pleading face before looking down. I vote that he's innocent. She says it almost like she's answering a question. Hearing those words were a nice bit of validation, but it wasn't enough to quell my dread. The next noble, the small stoat, raises his paw slightly and gives his verdict. I vote that this young man is innocent. There's clearly something more sinister at play here. I mean no offense towards your late father, Your Majesty, but please consider this a possibility. Another innocent verdict. Aegis glares at Lord Braden, but makes no move for a rebuttal. He has this look on his face like he knows with absolute certainty what the results will be. Even if he doesn't, I know what his answer will be. And I have a feeling I know what the other nobles' verdicts were. Yeah, what do you know? Yeah, but no, it's done. What is done? Hearing those words were a nice bit of validation, but it wasn't enough to quell my dread. The next noble, the small stoat, raises his paw slightly and gives his verdict. I vote that this young man is innocent. There's clearly something more sinister at play here. I mean no offense towards your late father, Your Majesty, but please consider this a possibility. Another innocent verdict. Aegis glares at Lord Braden, but makes no move for a rebuttal. He has this look on his face like he knows of an absolute certainty what the results will be. Even if he doesn't, I know what his answer will be. And I have a feeling I know what the other nobles' verdicts are too. That feeling has poisoned my stomach, and I have a feeling it will kill me with the final vote. Guilty. Before I even realize it, Lady Rihanna has raised her paw and cast her vote. He was taken red-handed and is clearly demented in some way. Before I can even want to deny her claim, Lord Galen bangs his cane on the floor. Innocent. I can only hope that true justice will be delivered. He looks at Aegis as he says this, his long beard shaking with each word. It is what your father would have wanted, another lord who thinks I'm innocent. Guilty. Guilty. 2 more votes. and they were fast too without any explanation. It's even now. Lord Grimdale stands from his chair, the sea scooting back as his large body rises into the air, towering above all. I vote this boy guilty. I feel my air leave my lungs as my chest tightens. 3 voted innocent, 4 voted guilty. I fall to my knees to look down on the ground. No. I hear Leo let out a faint groan across the steps, but it sounds muffled. In fact, my ears are ringing and my entire body feels a bit numb. He didn't do it, you... I hear Leo begin to run up the steps, but I see 2 guards rush him down and grab him by the arms. Nobody says anything at first. All that can be heard is armor grinding against armors and Leo's grunts. Leo, I will have you removed from this room if I hear another word out of you. Do you understand? He says this in a cold voice. I have never heard him speak like that. I just keep looking down at the ground, hoping everyone will just forget about me. Maybe agents will just throw me in a cell for a long time. At this point, I wish I could just go back to my cell. I hear footsteps approaching me from ahead, and they sound like hooves. They stop and a few moments later, Agents addresses me in another sharp tone. Look at me. It doesn't register at first, but after a few seconds I look up to see him standing over me. Lord Winter, you have been found guilty of the murder of King Raynor Argian. This includes treason, regicide, crimes against peace, and the sowing of discord throughout our great kingdom. And I'm afraid mental agony is not an excuse for such a crime. His words rub deep into my skin, but I can't feel the anger. Everything is still numb, and I can't stop thinking about just going back to my cell and curling up into a ball. My head is even starting to hurt again. I feel as if everyone's eyes are on me. Feels I can't even see. As I said before, the 2 of us are very different. This is all just a game to you. If I'm being honest, you're right to believe that. That's how it's portrayed in this cruel world. He looks over at Liao and then looks to the noble standing on the left before bringing his gaze back to me. Our profession has always been seen as a game. Some are better at playing it than others. He bends down so that his eyes are level with mine and lowers his voice to a whisper. You've always been my opponent in this little game of ours. Ever since the day you and that cat arrived here. In my opinion, it only made sense that you arrive at such drastic measures so soon. And I'm afraid you've lost. Another pain in the sides of my head hits me. He stands back up, throwing his cape back behind his shoulder. Don't feel bad about it, though. You did your best, and I don't blame you for trying to get away with it. Those who are out of their element often have to live by one's wits. What? My eyesight is taken for a moment as I feel my body pulled away from reality. Before I can even realize what's happening, I'm thrown to the ground, crashing into a hard object. All I can do is cough and sputter as my body slumps against the wall behind me. Fear, anger, shock, and sadness. These emotions overwhelm me on a scale I'm not even capable of comprehending, or maybe I'm just numb to it. Tears rush down my face and I can taste blood in my mouth. The back of my head kills an immense pain and one of my arms feels limp. My other arm is clasped on my stomach, blood pumping out of the fresh wounds and seeping into my clothes. The thick crimson substance floods out between my fingers, staining the golden brown fur. Standing over me is him, a figure clad in a dark leather cloak, brandishing a slender and vicious dagger, both dripping with blood. Through the unbearable pain, I catch a glimpse at their face only for a split second. Raynor coughs up blood and reaches out a hand, the arm shaking and weak. Please. The figure kneels down, swatting the hand away. The hand Raynor was extending to his son. Adris. He leans in, pushing Raynor's head back with his antlers and drags the knife across his neck. It cuts deep and it feels just as real as last time. The pain is awful. I can feel my grip on reality fading. How did this happen though? And where are his antlers? He had already grown them back by that point, right? No, this isn't possible. He wasn't there. He wasn't. As Adris lets go of Raynor's head, it slumps back into its recent position and Raynor looks up at him. Adris looks angry but scared at the same time. His eyes are wide open and I can't get an accurate read on his expression. It's like he's conflicted or lost, gritting his teeth and looking back with regret. No, he's just a coward. A weak, spineless coward. It's confusing and the pieces aren't all there. This has to be a sign from Tigran. I know Adris did it. I know it in my bones. As the life leaves Raynor's body, I can feel all the anger and hate from the previous few weeks rushing into my own. When you have nothing left, revenge no longer seems like the worst option. It couldn't be yelling at the top of my lungs without hesitation, I pushed myself out of my kneeling position, lunging forward at the deer. I hear the impact before I can even feel it in my fist. You bastard! My knuckles smash into the side of his muzzle, spinning his jaw as he's thrown back. I have to throw the punch using both of my hands as they are chained together, but it lands just as hard. The chain from the shackles flings out and whips him across the face, slinging blood onto the floor along with the blood that spits out of his mouth. Adris, your majesty! I hear Liz and Lyre yell out, along with several nobles and everyone in the crowd letting out shocked gasps of horror. I collapse to the ground, feeling like all of the energy I had left was spent doing that. His crown flies off his head, landing on the ground near me. Immediately I notice that the gem at the top has cracked, bits of it scattered across the floor. I don't have much time to think about why I did it and what's going to happen next though. Adris stumbles back, dazed and confused, before tripping over the step. Adris! Oh my god! I try to rise into a kneeling position and look up at what made that sound. As I get on one knee, two guards tackle me to the ground, forcing me onto my knees. Even with the force of two men pushing me down, I still managed to glimpse what I had done. Adris is propping himself up against the stairs, eyes full of shock. Blood rushes down the side of his head from where his antlers snapped off, dripping onto his clothes. There's a large cut on the bridge of his snout and his nose is bleeding. He must have hit his head on the steps and broken the antler. You. Lee tries to rush to his side, but Adris pushes him away. Get away from me. He looks at me, his eyes filled with rage. I've never seen him like this. I've never seen him like this. Arrest him. Arrest him now. Take him back to his cell where he can rot. He's the one who did it. Lyre, I was right the first time. He killed him. I feel a guard's arm wrap around my head as he tried to gag me. Lyre! I look around the room, but I don't see him anymore. Liz and Lyre are standing there shocked, Lee slowly inching toward Adris, trying to help him. It was him. Adris. The guard shoves what I think is a rag into my mouth, pulling out both sides and tightening it. The nobles are rushing to Adris' side, and the crowd behind us is in commotion. I hear people running around, adding more to the chaos. Adris, please, let me. Where's Lyre? This comes out as a whisper. I almost pick up a hint of fear in his voice and not knowing where Lyre is. Where's that dog? I want him put down now. Where is he? Don't just stand around. Find him. Liz, have the gates to the city closed. Nobody's getting in or out until that mutt is found. The two guards lift me and start to drag me out of the throne room. Your head will roll in the dirt, bastard. Everything feels like it's moving at half the speed, and all I can do is watch as the chaos ensues. Let go of me. I try to wiggle out and stop the guards, but as I do, one of them brings their fist back and slams it in my face. Okay, now we're gonna stop here. Now, I never liked Adris, but I didn't think he might have been the killer. Certainly, he had disagreements with his father, but I didn't really think he was a killer. There were points where I thought he might have been the killer, but I didn't think he would have done that. But apparently, he did kill his father, and Tigran himself, he knew that time was just about out for Richter, so he had to do something swift and fast. So he gave Richter the vision of Adris killing his father. And the look on Adris' face, I noticed that his face, he had a lot of pain in his face. I mean, it was a look of anger and both regret, because he knew that he really messed up big time by killing his father. There was no turning back from it now. Well, at that point, that's what he knew. That at that point, there was no turning back. He did what he did, and his father is dying. And I wonder if Adris killed his father based on his own conscience, or if something evil or sinister took over Adris and made him kill his father. And Adris also said, well, like right after the verdict was given, he basically just spent time gloating towards Richter. He said that they're professing, politics is a game, and he doesn't blame him for trying to play the game, and that both Richter and the Dweezil ambassador, I forgot his name already, but both Richter and the ambassadors of Dweez, the Caracol, he viewed both of them as being his opponents. There's clearly a hatred that Adris had for both Richter and the Caracol. What's his name again? He clearly had hatred for both of them, and he just made it clear. He made it verbally clear just now. So I think, well, he never liked Victor even when he first came, but it seemed like he hated him even more, I guess, when he found out that Victor said about him having a vision of his mother being killed. That really got to that really got to Adris, and he got really angry after that. But he always despised Victor, even when he first met him, when he and his father was having the dinner with Victor. And about those nobles, apparently not all of them had something against Victor. The Stoat and the Deer, I think, those two clearly believed that there was something about this child that wasn't white. That there were still some things that there were still some missing pieces in the puzzle, and they certainly weren't convinced that Victor was guilty, so they voted innocent. So apparently, not all nobles are assholes, but unfortunately, the majority of them are. And the owls and the bear and the vixen, they clearly did not like Victor in his outburst he gave to them at the party, which was true. I mean, what he said about them were true. I mean, there were nobles that were really arrogant and dismissive of those that are not in their social status. So nobles clearly do not like it when you speak up to them. So, in my opinion, in their mind, that alone was a crime. So, I believe they voted with their feelings more than with the evidence or their educated guess as to what the verdict would have been. I don't think they had any good educated guesses or anything to like base their opinions of whether their Victor was innocent or guilty on. I think they just did it based on their feelings and their anger towards Victor for speaking up to them. So for that alone, they just voted him guilty. I mean, they're just petty. And it looks like Victor will be in prison. He'll be put back in the cell, and I think he'll be taken to a place even worse than the cell he's been in. And he'll probably be in prison. Well, now that he attacked Aegis, he'll probably be in prison there for the rest of his life, and they'll put him in a worse spot than the cell he was in. Just remember Lyre talking about the different levels of the castle, well, the different levels of prison, and the further down you go, the worse it gets. I remember Lyre telling Victor that as he was going him to the trial. And about Lyre, what happened to him? I mean, while Raynor, Victor, getting the names confused, while Victor was yelling, saying that Aegis killed his father, and he was trying to tell Lyre that Aegis did it, that he killed his father, Lyre never responded, and that he actually left the throne room. So, how anybody, I don't know how anybody didn't notice that he left. I mean, you got a big 6'6" wolf who just left. I don't know how anybody could have missed Lyre, how big he is, He him being able to just leave without anybody noticing. Or maybe people did notice, but were too invested in what happened with with Winter attacking Adris for them to think about it even more. They just so focused on Winter attacking Adris. But anyway, they all ran out. I don't know if he abandoned Winter and decided to run away, or if he's trying to think of something else to do. Hopefully it's a former. I mean, hopefully it's the second option, because this certainly did not go the way he was hoping it would go. And that servant, I was kind of suspicious about that servant when I first saw him. I never mentioned it, but I knew there was something suspicious about him. I can't describe it, but I always knew there was something about that servant. And he lied on Winter, and Elizabeth said that servant was never questioned. I mean, why are you having him in the trial if he was never questioned? But apparently, Adris decided to bring this servant because apparently he probably figured that this servant had something incriminating on Winter and Lyre. And, well, maybe not incriminating, but something that would make the both of them look bad. I mean, if he can't get any evidence, then at least try to make a big scandal, about it, so that way everybody will sway against Winter. So this servant did what Adris wanted, and Adris got the reaction that he wanted, which was all the nobles there to be sought and awe. The ambassador from Dries, he thought that it wasn't a big deal and it didn't have anything to do with the trial. But apparently, Adris didn't care. He just wanted the nobles to go against Winter. That all these scandals, like trivial stuff. We have trivial stuff like just two people of two different species going together. That is not okay in Lyre. So while two people of different species going together, it's not a big deal in Erin or Dries. It's a big deal here in Lyre. Because the ambassador to Dries, the Caracol, he certainly did not see it as a big deal, or he didn't see it as a big deal at all, in that it had no relevance. That's what he was basically trying to say. There was no relevance to it. But Adris didn't care. Anyway. So yeah, I'm not surprised that Winter was got a guilty sentence. It was rigged. The trial was rigged. And even some of the nobles who voted innocent seemed to think that way. And Adris, his mind was made up about Winter from the very start. So there's one more chapter left. That's chapter 12, and then once we do that chapter, we'll build up to date with where Lyre is at right now, the visual novel. So is going to be the aftermath of the whole trial. So, thank you all very much for watching. Goodbye.